Yo, what is up, guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, this video is a quick preview and prediction for Gervonta Tank Davis versus Mario Barrios. Now, I have to say, this fight online has been met with varied opinions on how good this fight actually is. Some people like the fight, some people are indifferent, and some people do not like this fight and see it as a cherry pick. I have to say, maybe I'm in the minority, but I actually quite like this fight. I do believe Mario Barrios does pose some threats for Gervonta Tank Davis, mainly due to the fact that he's much bigger, he's got respectable power, and he's used to campaigning at 140 pounds. And I also think stylistically, when you put these two guys together, it will actually make for a relatively exciting fight. So I actually quite like this fight. I do believe there's an element of risk for Tank Davis in this fight. I'll put it to you this way. I mean, I'm pretty confident that Gervonta Tank Davis would get smoked by the elite 140 pounders, guys like Josh Taylor, Regis Prograis, Jose Ramirez. I think these guys are far too big, far too strong, and even a bit too good for Gervonta Tank Davis. But can Tank Davis beat a fringe level top 10 guy like Mario Barrios? I'm not entirely certain, so I don't mind this fight. I do have a couple of concerns leading into this fight. Well, one in particular, and that is there any weight stipulation for Mario Barrios? When this fight was first talked about, there was a lot of rumours that it was going to be at catch weight. At this point, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case, but on top of that, will there be a rehydration clause? I do worry about that, to be honest. I certainly think it's a possibility. We know how dirty the boxing game is, but I'll do this prediction, based on, let's say there is no rehydration clause, okay? But all in all, there's several aspects of this fight I like, and I am looking forward to it. I actually think this is Gervonta Davis's toughest fight on paper since his fight with Jose Pedraza back in, 2017, whenever it was. You may say, well, Leo Santa Cruz is better in a pound-for-pound sense, but Leo Santa Cruz had no business at 130 in my opinion. In fact, Leo Santa Cruz looked pretty bad at 126 pounds, let alone 130, so I do see Mario Barrios as the most dangerous guy Tank has fought since Jose Pedraza. But nevertheless, let's get into the tail of the tape. And by the way, before we do start, this fight is for Mario Barrios' WBA regular title. But Mario Barrios has a perfect record of 26-0, 17 of his 26 wins coming by way of knockout. Gervonta Davis also has a perfect record of 24-0, 23 of his 24 wins coming by way of stoppage. Mario Barrios is listed as 5'10", with a 71-inch reach, whereas Tank Davis is listed as 5'5.5", with a 67.5-inch reach. So Mario Barrios is 4.5 inches taller and also has a reach advantage of 3.5 inches. So Mario Barrios is significantly taller, he is significantly longer, and I'm assuming that he will actually rehydrate to a higher weight than Tank Davis, assuming there's no rehydration clause. So Mario Barrios is the bigger man in this fight, and that could possibly play a part in this fight. Mario Barrios is an orthodox fighter, whereas Tank Davis is a southpaw. Mario Barrios is 26 years old, as is Tank Davis. Both of these guys are the same age. Both guys are in and around their prime, and both guys have a similar level of experience. I think Tank Davis has fought a slightly higher level of competition. I think Pedraza is a better win than anything on Barrios' resume, as is Leo Santa Cruz, even though I had a few problems with that fight. So Tank Davis is a little more tested, but nevertheless, a similar level of experience. Both guys are in and around their prime, so in that sense, they are pretty closely matched together. So yeah, all in all, it's a fight I'm looking forward to. Anyway, let's break down what I believe each guy should do, and then at the end of this video, I will make my official prediction. I guess we start with the champion, Mario Barrios. Now, obviously, Mario Barrios is the longer, taller man in this fight, and to win this fight, or to have any chance of winning this fight, he needs to make the most of his height and reach advantage. When Barrios uses his jab, it's actually a pretty good shot, as is his straight right hand from distance. The problem Mario Barrios has, he's one of those tall, rangy fighters who likes to give up his height to trade and exchange with his opponents. We've seen this throughout Mario Barrios' career, in his last fight with Ryan Karl, and also in his fight with Bakhtiar Akhmedov, in which he won by a unanimous decision, but I actually felt he lost that fight. He got significantly outlanded and outworked in that fight, but when he had Akhmedov at distance, that's when he did his best work with his jab, with his straight right hand, and he was landing good shots from range. In fact, in the last round, he actually dropped Akhmedov with a nice straight right hand. He actually generates power on those straight punches, so the key, or one of the keys for Mario Barrios, is to make the most of his height and reach. Tank Davis is 5'5.5". He's a small dude. In my opinion, he's not a real 140 pounder, and it's up to Mario Barrios to make him realise that. I believe in this fight, Mario Barrios needs to be constantly taking that half step back, popping the jab, and then trying to walk Tank Davis into that straight right hand. Bear in mind, Tank Davis is a southpaw, and they always say the southpaw's kryptonite is the straight right hand. And especially considering Barrios has that height advantage, and Tank Davis isn't exactly great at cutting the ring off, I think that tactic of keeping at range, keeping behind the jab, and utilising that straight right hand is going to be very important for him in this fight. He needs to be a lot more disciplined than we've seen him in his previous fights. Like I say, Mario Barrios has that warrior instinct where he likes to trade. He needs to throw that out of a window in this fight. Obviously, he can't be too passive, he can't run around the ring, hope to get a decision. Tank Davis is the A-side in this fight, but he can be authoritative with that jab, with that straight right hand, while managing the distance, while keeping Tank Davis at arm's length. And ultimately, that's what he needs to do. He needs to avoid exchanging with Tank at mid-range and on the inside, because if he does that, he's going to get caught with big hard shots up the middle, like the uppercuts and the hooks from Tank Davis. Tank's a much quicker puncher. I think he's much more dangerous in the exchanges, so Mario Barrios needs to take that away from Tank Davis. He needs to make Tank Davis chase this fight, don't walk onto him, and keep range. Tank Davis is exceptionally devastating when he's fighting a guy who likes to come forwards and throw punches at him. Look at the Pedraza fight, for example. Pedraza was actually quite aggressive in that fight, and he got pieced up. But guys who can actually show Tank Davis a bit of movement, guys like Francisco Fonseca and even Yuriorkis Gamboa, these guys made Tank look a little ordinary at times. Problem with Gamboa and Fonseca, these guys didn't have the arsenal, didn't have the height and reach to really give Tank any problems. But I did notice in those fights that Tank isn't too great at being the aggressor and cutting the ring off, so I think it's imperative that Mario Barrios tries to take advantage of that in this fight. Again, can't be too passive. He's still got to be throwing with authority with that jab and with that straight right hand, try and walk Tank into some big shots. But he just needs to be sure to maintain that range. Distance is paramount in this fight for Mario Barrios. If he approaches this fight like he did with Bakhtiar Akhmedov, he'll get beat in my opinion. He got involved far too much in that fight and got hit a lot. I know Akhmedov is a much better pressure fighter than Tank Davis and fights with a lot more output in terms of his punches, but nevertheless, man, he made it far too easy for Akhmedov to get his work off. So yeah, Mario needs to be a lot more aware of the distance control in this fight. I would even suggest, if this fight does start well for Mario Barrios, I don't think it would be the worst idea as this fight goes on, as it gets later in the fight. Then you can try and start to test Tank Davis, maybe try and push him back, utilise your height and reach and weight advantage, and actually try and put it on Tank Davis. If you go back and watch that Leo Santa Cruz fight, Leo Santa Cruz was fighting fire with fire, and in my opinion that was a dumb strategy, considering how hard Tank hits, but when Leo was letting his hands go and fighting fire with fire, he was actually hitting Tank Davis a lot. So maybe in this fight, if Mario Barrios does start well and he has success early on, as he gets into the second half of this fight or the last quarter, that's when he can start to really roll the dice and actually try and push Tank back, as Tank is a bit more tired kind of thing, because Tank's not fought anybody this big. He's not fought anybody this strong, so at some point, not just utilise that height and reach advantage, but also just utilise that natural size advantage as well, and maybe try and push Tank back in the later parts of his fight as Tank gets more tired. So ultimately, for Mario Barrios in this fight, it is utilising his physical advantages. I don't think Barrios is naturally as talented as Tank Davis. He's not as quick, he's not as explosive, and pound for pound, he doesn't hit as hard, but he does have certain advantages, and he needs to use them in this fight. I don't want to see this guy sit there and trade with Tank from round one. It's a dumb idea. He needs to utilise what he has. As for Tank Davis, in this fight, because of that height and reach, you might see a scenario where Tank needs to cut the ring off, and in the previous fights of Tank's career, that's one area of his game where I've not really been convinced, his ability to cut the ring off. In this fight, I want to see Tank be a bit more aggressive actually coming forwards, quickening those feet up and trying to jab his way in and closing the distance in a quicker fashion. Tank Davis's footwork is one area that I'm not entirely convinced. He doesn't have the quickest feet, and like I said, not the greatest at cutting the ring off, so he needs to improve that in this fight. Again, come in behind that double jab, maybe even throw a few feints while applying pressure, try and draw the lead, come in underneath, and then start exploding with those powerful combinations. And obviously for Tank Davis in this fight, he's in there against a much taller, longer man who might use his legs. I think bodywork in this fight might be important for Tank Davis. Try and drain those legs of Mario Barrios. There's a lot of body to aim at when it comes to Mario Barrios, so when Tank Davis is at mid-range or particularly on the inside, he needs to be strafing Mario Barrios with those hooks to the body and even uppercuts to the solar plexus. Try and drain that Tank. Also in this fight for Tank Davis, I think it might be very beneficial if he starts this fight well, as in he catches Mario Barrios with some good shots early on, because Mario Barrios, like I said earlier, he's one of those guys, he's got these natural advantages over a lot of fighters, but Mario Barrios has he's got what I describe as a fighter's ego. So what I mean by that, when this guy gets clipped, he will basically throw boxing out the window and he'll want to trade with you. That's his mindset, that's his attitude. And while that can be admirable and exciting as a fan, it can lead you into a lot of trouble at the elite level. So if Tank actually manages to catch this dude with some good shots early on, that might actually encourage Mario Barrios to engage in a slugfest, and to me that favours Tank Davis. Tank is far more accurate with his work, he's far more devastating in terms of his power, and he's far quicker when it comes to hand speed. So I think catching Mario Barrios early on in this fight could be very important for Tank Davis, just because I think it could actually stray Mario Barrios from his game plan. And ultimately as well as all of what I've just said, Tank needs to utilise his hand speed, his counterpunch ability. I do believe Tank Davis actually has really good composure when he's exchanging with fighters, and his timing as well is actually pretty good. He's what I would describe as an explosive mid-range / pocket counterpuncher. So Tank in this fight needs to be a little more subtle in his approach. Try and, add a few feints to his game. Try and get Barrios to commit to his shots and then strafe him with big counters. In particular, Mario Barrios has a tendency to really lean into his right hand. So he'll throw his straight right hand and really lean in. It's examples like that where Tank needs to be on it and pick that counter punch. He needs to slip that straight right and then come up the middle with a real hard counter shot. So as well as being a bit more aggressive in this fight, I think Tank obviously naturally needs to look for those counter punch opportunities. That's what he's good at, in my opinion. He is good at picking those single shots when guys overcommit or make a mistake. And ultimately that's always going to be Tank Davis. I'm not asking Tank Davis to reinvent the wheel and change his style. I really want to see in this fight his style, but being a bit more aggressive, if that makes sense. But all in all, I do see this as a really interesting fight. I am actually quite looking forward to it, to tell you the truth. And it's one of those fights in which I wouldn't be shocked to see an upset. I really wouldn't be shocked. It wouldn't shock me, personally. But I think the safe money is with Tank Davis. I actually believe he will have trouble in this fight, particularly early on, with the height and reach of Mario Barrios. But eventually, I think Mario Barrios is going to get drawn into Tank Davis's type of fight. He will engage a little too often, and while he will have his own success, because Tank's defense isn't what it's cracked up to be in my opinion, but I just think Tank's going to be hitting him with the harder shots and make those moments count more so than Barrios. So ultimately, my official prediction in this fight is Tank Davis by a late stoppage, like an accumulation stoppage. Maybe the referee jumps in to wave it off. Maybe even Barrios' corner waves it off after taking too much punishment. I wouldn't even be surprised if Tank wins this fight on points, to be honest, but I do believe this fight definitely goes late, and I do believe Mario Barrios does have some success, and I do believe he's a live underdog, but ultimately my prediction is a Tank Davis late stoppage or a Tank Davis win on points. But anyway, share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Peace.